folks, it's Kikoskia here, and welcome back to Writing and Me. This video contains no gameplay or music whatsoever, allowing you to focus on whatever it is you're up to, whether it's reading, writing, editing your work, or pondering about going back to a world you created that you haven't touched for many years. Such is the case with the Threnody of Dustledom, a story that was originally my 2017 entry for NaNoWriMo. But it didn't just come to be out of nothing at that time, because I'd done a lot of work on the world of Colvin before then. There are actually a number of short stories that I've written in that world that are quite a bit older, and I have a lot of material to work with when it comes to creating the tale that I'm writing. I have a world map that does need updating a bit. There are some things that are out of date, but it's very good for helping me visualize things in the world. There is also a timeline that, while the title of it says it's complete, in truth, it is always being tweaked and edited, and especially so now that I'm writing this story, because there are some things that don't fit with the current flow of things, and a few things that I needed to add. And then there is the character database, which is a huge thing that contains nearly 100 characters that I have designed for various purposes throughout the years that are just currently sitting there, and Caden is one of them. As for what made me want to do this story, there are two things that have spurred me on. The first being that I wanted something to do with some of the spare time that I have, and working on my writing seemed like a brilliant thing to do after finishing the first and second draft of my first novel a little while ago. And it's always good to keep your writing skills honed and get some practice in. And that, in a way, is what the Threnody of Dustledom is. It's also a way to get my writing out there in the wider world. Though I have done a lot of writing, I've never, up until I started serializing this, had any of my writing out for people to see. I was very, very protective of my writing, for obvious reasons. It's a very daunting thing, putting something that you have created out there for people to look at. You may not think it with how often I put up videos, but I truly do look at every video that I put up and think, no one's gonna like this. It's terrible. Why did you put this up? That's what happened every time in my head when I thought about talking about the story that I was working on before the Threnody of Dustledom. The other thing as well that stopped me from really talking about my story was that there was no way for me to reveal anything without spoiling things. Unlike in this story, there are certain things that are intrinsically tied to reveals and twists that, were I to write something else in that setting, would be spoiled for the main story. And I don't want to spoil things for the main story. But I'm diverting away from a Threnody of Dustledom, which of course is something that I was inevitably going to do, because I always do. If you haven't figured this out by now, you've now figured it out. That statement was meant to go places. It didn't. This should not surprise anyone. The way I've been putting out the Threnody of Dustledom is a serialized manner. I've been writing it chapter by chapter, or working on it chapter by chapter. The words are used interchangeably depending upon what chapter it is. I'll go into more detail in a bit, and putting them up on my website, Kikoskia.com, for people to read for free. I wanted to try serializing a story, and also I again wanted people to see how I write, and serializing it is a lot different to what I'm used to. I'm used to writing at my own pace and having nobody else but me look at the completed product. This has everyone looking at it, and the way you actually keep people interested in a serialized story is quite a bit different to how you keep people interested in a full-fledged novel or short story, because you don't have all of the stuff there. There isn't the end immediately accessible to them. They only have what you have currently worked on. And so there is an impetus to keep people's interest from chapter to chapter. This is why a story that's been serialized has quite a different structure to one that hasn't. It has something of significance happening every chapter to keep people invested and to keep people interested in what's going on going forward. I've been doing that for the most part, though there have been chapters where not a huge amount has happened, because ultimately I do intend for this to be not only readable in a serialized manner, but also readable as a single experience, as a fully finished novel. And I am making steady progress towards that. Most of the chapters at the beginning I had something to work with because I had the NaNoWriMo draft, which originally wasn't a draft when I wrote it, but now is because it's 3 years old, and my writing style has changed, hopefully for the better. But there have been instances where things have changed. Significant things in some instances. I'm not going to go into detail as to specifically what, because if you haven't read the Threnody of Dustledom, I don't want to spoil anything about the plot itself. And when those changes have happened, it has forced me to write completely fresh chapters, or alter chapters that already exist in such a way that you actually have to work on them quite a bit to make things fit. It's been a very interesting exercise in adapting something I've already made to effectively a new story. The story's still going the same way, but just by me working on it later on, I have a different mindset. I have a different set of ideas that are going to clash in part with the ones that are already there. I don't have the deadline that NaNoWriMo imposed upon me, which is 1,667 words a day, so that you can write a 50,000 word novella in a month. Typically, I write 2,000 words a day so that I can be done 5 days earlier, and it's a much more even number than 1,667, though those extra words do add up day by day. I don't write 2,000 words a day for the Threnody of Dustledom. I go for 1,000, or at the very least I try to get a chapter put out every single week, and so far I have managed that, even through the ridiculous heat, though it is getting more tricky as the story progresses, as I get to points where I need to do more and more work, because of all the changes that I've made earlier, and when I have to write completely new chapters. Completely new chapters are really tricky, but it has been very, very enjoyable so far. And I just realised I've gone this far without even mentioning what genre the Threnody of Dustledom is. The Threnody of Dustledom is a fantasy story and an adventure story. There's lots of action, there's lots of danger, and there's sinister things, and all the things that you'd hope to expect when you pick up a book and go, swords and sorcery? Why not? There's definitely a meanness to my writing. That is a very vague way of putting things, but there's a tone to a lot of my writing that isn't as pronounced here. I'm not going to say what that tone is. I hope that I've been able to convey what that tone is, especially with the more recent chapters, but suffice to say, every author has their specific voice and their specific mannerisms and their specific way of doing things, and Colvin has that, but to a lesser degree, and I quite like that, because it challenges me to write a little bit differently, while still retaining what makes my writing what it is. You want to know what the most nerve-wracking part of the writing process is? It's putting it up after going over it myself, after going through a grammar and spell check, and then waiting for people to notice things that I haven't noticed. Every time I put up a chapter, I am very worried that someone's going to turn around and just tell me that I have uploaded absolute rubbish. Fortunately, that's not happened. The general feedback I've received has been positive. I have been doing a lot of little alterations here and there, especially spelling and grammar, because there are things that I have missed. It's great what a pair of fresh eyes can see. I can go through a check, I can have a program go through a check, and then someone can go, oh, by the way, you have that. And I go, oh, I do, because it's not incorrectly spelt, and the grammar technically works, but it doesn't make any sense, because my mind has read that and just replaced the incorrect word with the correct one, and I haven't thought twice about it, because I'm that familiar with my work. Very familiar with the characters, how they think, what their going to do. When something is awry in the text, my mind can just gloss over it, and I'm very thankful to the people who point out these things. Every little change makes my work that little bit better. As for the ultimate plan with the Threnody of Dustledom, when it is done, and there is definitely an end point that we will reach, when it is done, I intend to go over the whole thing with a big scrutinizing editing eye, and then it's called Earl the scrutinizing editing eye. Good person. Very good at noticing errors. Once I've done that, I'll inevitably do it again, and eventually someone will tell me to stop, and then I will look to getting it into ebook form, so that people can read it on their preferred e-reader. It's going to remain on the website as something that is always free to read, but I want to give people the option to pay a small amount of money to have it on their favourite e-reader and take it out wherever they go and read it. Something that someone actually mentioned, a friend of mine, a couple of weeks ago, technically because I have published fiction out in the world, I am a published author now. The definition of published author has certainly changed over the years, and a number of decades ago that would have meant you have a book that someone can physically go into a store and buy. Now, with ebooks and being able to publish stuff on your own website, I am a published author, and it's definitely not the way that I thought this would come about, but it has happened, and it hasn't quite hit me yet. I think it will hit me when the story is finished and edited again and then available as an ebook. When people start buying the book, well, I hope they'll start buying the book, and this is when nobody purchases the book, and then I become sad. But I digress. When it is a completed, finished thing, and I stop editing it, and I have a front cover, and I have a blurb, and when it is out there as a complete product, then I will think to myself, I am an author. An actual published author that people have read, and hopefully that people enjoy the work of. Then a lingering fear will grow that people will want more of Colvin. And I'll have to think about what to do going forward if that is the case, because that could happen. I don't know if it will. I don't know if people will finish that story and go, well, I'm done with that world, time to see the other one. But that is a bridge that I will cross when I come to it. I just hope that you enjoy what I'm creating. It is quite difficult to do. It's not easy working on that, but ultimately I enjoy doing it, and hopefully you enjoy what I create. And even if you don't, I'm still going to finish the story and put it up so that people can read it for myself. Doing it for me is the most important thing, because I want to prove to myself that I can be a published author. And hopefully one people will like the work of. And I don't know where this video was going. It started off with, hey, I'm going to talk a bit about the experience of writing it, and then it sort of rambled off into the distance. Come back, trail of thought. No, you're on your own! And then I was on my own. But for those who've listened to my audio videos before, this is no new occurrence. And for those that haven't, hey, I like to go off on wild tangents occasionally that are only vaguely connected to what the original topic was. It's something I do. You'll be seeing more of it, or hearing more of it rather, if you listen to these videos. And so in conclusion, really enjoying working on Threnody of Dustledom. Going to continue working on it. In fact, later today, which is Friday, the day of recording, I'm going to be finishing off Chapter 17, which is the prompt for me to say that Chapters 1 through 16 are available to be read on my website. If you go to kikoskia.com/writing/Dustledom, which is spelled Dustledom, or you follow the link in the description, you can be led straight to the story, and you can read at your heart's content. And I hope that you like what I've put there. A lot more than the 2 chapters I started with, because I did just start with 2. My, it's been a long time. A chapter a week, not including chapter 1. I've been doing this for nearly 16 weeks, and that is 4 months. those months have flown by. And fingers crossed, the rest of the writing process will also fly by. And then I'll have a finished thing, and I'll be like, well, what do I do with this? And it goes, I don't know, you could make an ebook version, but it's finished. Authors never truly finish stories. They're always tinkering with them. Nope, put me down. But put me down. See, more tangential stuff. I better get to the end point before it gets worse. And so, thank you very much to everyone who has read my story and provided feedback, regardless of the type. And to those that haven't, why not give it a look? Maybe you'll like it. And so, that concludes this video about the Threnody of Dustledom. Kind of. It sort of meandered about, but I mentioned a few things. And when we come back, folks, another audio video. Will it be about writing? Will it be about gaming? Will it be about something completely different? Will it be about cheese? Okay, it probably won't be about cheese. I really don't know enough about cheese to do a full in-depth thing about cheese. And then people go, no, you should do the thing about cheese! And then I'll have no choice but to do a video about cheese. Or maybe I'll defy the will of the viewers and make a video not about cheese. The future is yet to be determined, but there's a small chance it might have cheese in it. And so, I'll catch you next time, folks, and I'll see you then. Later.